The Obama administration faces a major decision as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to give a speech to Congress. That decision is whether Vice President Joe Biden should attend. Our team coverage from Washington begins with One America's Patrick Hushin.
On Capitol Hill, Democrat frustration is growing, and despite the effort, Israeli Ambassador Ron Dermer is not helping to put out any fires at this point. The Obama administration feels the president's attendance of the event, if it happens, may send the wrong message and somehow influence the upcoming Israeli election. But they're stopping short of committing the vice president to attend.
There have been a number of joint sessions that have been convened while he's been vice president. But as it relates to the speech that Prime Minister Netanyahu has planned for the first week in March, I can tell you that the vice president's schedule for that week has not yet been set.
Now, Vice President Biden has made it a habit of attending all joint sessions of Congress when a foreign leader speaks. I believe he's only missed one in his tenure, and that's what makes Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit so interesting. If the vice president does not attend, how will Israel view such an obvious snub? What effect will that have going forward? The Obama administration says Speaker Boehner is attempting to make the prime minister's visit more about two political parties as opposed to two countries working to better a strained relationship. Needless to say, there's a lot riding on Vice President Biden's schedule the day that Prime Minister Netanyahu comes to town. Now, again, Democrats are pushing back on Speaker Boehner's invite, and my colleague Augusta Cassidy is on Capitol Hill with more on what the leaders in the lower chamber have to say. Augusta?
That's right, Patrick. Over here on the Hill, Democrats are still up in arms over Speaker Boehner's decision to invite Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to speak in front of the Congress. And that's mainly because the Speaker extended the invitation without consulting President Obama first. But Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi points out that it's not just that. It's also the timing. In a press briefing Thursday, she claimed that having the Prime Minister speak to Congress just 2 weeks before a national election in Israel is beneath the dignity of Congress. Although Republicans might argue that it could have something to do with what the Prime Minister might say about furthering sanctions on Iran, something he's been critical of President Obama for delaying. Regarding the so-called speech boycott by Democrats, Leader Pelosi downplayed the drama, telling reporters not to think of it in that term. She says members will be there or they won't, just like they do with any speech. As of right now, the minority leader says she plans to be in attendance, but admits that she's hopeful it won't actually happen. But House Speaker John Boehner maintains that having the Israeli Prime Minister speak to Congress is a good idea.
The threat of radical Islamic terrorists is a real threat. The threat of Iran to the region and the rest of the world is a real threat. And I believe that the American people are interested in hearing the truth about what's happening in that part of the world.
Minority Leader Pelosi says she stands firm in the fight for non-proliferation and that even if Israel didn't exist, the U.S. would make sure Iran didn't have nuclear weapons. She also argues that Congress has already welcomed Prime Minister Netanyahu twice, with Winston Churchill being the only other leader to be welcomed 3 times, and that with respect for Israel and the country's strong U.S. ties, she feels it would be better if he didn't come in March. Israeli officials did meet with lawmakers here on Wednesday in hopes of easing the fuss over the planned speech. But it seems the so-called Democratic revolt is still in place. So stay tuned as the drama will surely continue leading up to the much disputed March 3rd speech. Augusta Cassidy, One American News, Washington.